They said the sky was perfect that day. A deep, cloudless blue. But I don't remember the color. All I remember is gray. Hello everyone, my name is Gorge, and I'm going to share my tragic story of 9/11 attack, where I lost my other half I lived in New York with. My brother, Daniel, we worked downtown, 2 blocks from the towers. He was always the early riser. Shaved, suited, and caffeinated before I could even finish brushing my teeth. He'd rib me for it, too. Come on, sleepyhead. He'd laugh, slapping my shoulder as we stepped out of the apartment. We've got a skyline to conquer. That morning, we were running late. Just 10 minutes. It should have been nothing. We just stepped out of the subway, still arguing about whether to grab bagels or coffee first, when the first plane hit. The sound, I can't describe it. It was like the sky was being torn apart, metal screaming through air that wasn't supposed to hold it. The North Tower erupted in a blossom of orange and black. People around us screamed. We stood frozen. What the hell was that? Daniel whispered. I think I said, a bomb, or something equally stupid. Then a woman next to us dropped her purse and pointed to the sky. A plane, she said. It was a plane. Daniel turned to me, his mouth moving, but I couldn't hear him over the sirens and chaos. Then papers started falling, just like snow. Letters, reports, office memos, fluttering down from the broken sky. And through that haze of disbelief, I saw Daniel move. He was running toward the tower. Dan! I shouted. I ran after him. What are you doing? He looked back once, just once, and I saw it in his eyes. Someone he knew was up there. Someone he loved. Maybe a coworker, maybe more, I never found out. All I knew was that he wasn't stopping. I caught up to him at the edge of the police barricade. He grabbed my shoulder. If it was you in there, he said, would you want me to wait? And then he was gone. The crowd surged. Dust filled the air. I shouted after him, but the tower loomed like a cathedral of fire, and Daniel vanished into it like he belonged there. I never saw him again. I stayed near the site, watching, praying, waiting for him to come out. My phone had no signal. The streets were screams and sirens. Then, at 9:03, the second plane hit the South Tower. I watched it happen. The fire, the thunder, the buildings groaning like something ancient had been disturbed. That's when I knew. Really knew he wasn't coming back. And yet I waited. I stood in that ash-covered street, my face burning, my throat raw. People ran, collapsed, sobbed. I stood still. I think I was the only one. Then came the collapse. The South Tower first. The noise was wrong. It wasn't just loud. It was final, like a door slamming shut on the world. A tidal wave of smoke and debris tore down the avenue. I ran, but the dust swallowed me. Couldn't see, couldn't breathe. Something hit me. Wood? Metal? And I hit the pavement hard. I passed out. When I woke up, it was dark. Not night, just dust dark. The kind where sunlight doesn't reach. I sat up, coughing, tasting ash. And then I saw him. Daniel. He stood at the far end of the hallway, not the street. Somehow I was inside. It looked like an office, but ruined. Walls bent, lights flickering. He was dressed just as he had been that morning, suit torn, soot on his face. Dan? I called out. He didn't answer, just turned and walked through a broken door. I followed. I passed through a maze of empty rooms, all humming with a low electrical buzz. Phones rang in the distance, unanswered. Desks were overturned. Fire alarms blinked red, but made no sound. And all the while, Daniel stayed just ahead, always around the next corner, always out of reach. My skin prickled. Something was wrong with the air. Thick, heavy. It buzzed, like it was full of trapped voices. I swear I could hear whispering in the static. I entered what looked like a boardroom. Daniel stood at the far end, staring out a shattered window into gray nothingness. When I called his name, he turned slowly. His eyes weren't right. They were dark voids, almost. No reflection. No light. "You left me," he said. "No, I didn't. I tried. Dan, I swear I tried. You turned away. I waited for you. I was there. I never left. You breathed," he whispered. "I didn't." I stepped back. The room trembled, lights flickering like a heartbeat. Outside, the gray began to move, like it was alive, writhing. He took a step toward me. "They're still falling," he said. And then I fell too. Not physically, mentally, emotionally. Something inside me collapsed, just like the towers. I screamed his name as the walls cracked, as the windows blew inward, as the gray took over everything. I woke up in a triage tent, 2 blocks away. Medics pulled me out of the rubble 3 hours after the North Tower fell. They said I was lucky. A miracle. One of them called me. I didn't feel lucky. I never told anyone what I saw. They'd say it was trauma, shock, grief. Maybe it was. Maybe my mind created a ghost to make sense of losing him. But sometimes, I wake up in the middle of the night, choking on dust that isn't there. Sometimes I hear a phone ringing, over and over, just out of reach. And every September, at exactly 8:46 a.m., I hear footsteps in the hallway, slow, heavy, like someone in dress shoes. I open the door and it's always empty, but the air smells like smoke. And sometimes when I pass a mirror, I see him standing behind me just for a moment, ash on his face, tear in his suit, waiting. It's been so long, but Yves never recovered from that. I miss him so much and wish it was me instead of him. Thank you for listening my story. I needed to get this off my chest. I hope you have a good day. I will remain anonymous for some personal reasons, but here is my story of how I lost my beloved father in 9/11 tragedy, but I wonder if he actually left. I was 12 when my father died in the North Tower. We had spoken that morning, just long enough for him to tell me to stop dragging my feet and get ready for school. He always called before leaving his office on the 86th floor. Always left a message if I didn't pick up. That morning it was short. "Brush your hair, champ. You look like a porcupine. Love you." That voicemail, I still have it. He worked at Cantor Fitzgerald. Mom said he'd only been in early that day because of a meeting. If it wasn't for that damn meeting, she never finished the sentence. I was in math class when it happened. The teacher's phone rang. She went pale. She turned on the TV. And then the world changed. I remember watching the North Tower, already burning, smoke blackening the perfect September sky. I thought it was a movie at first. I was just a kid. I didn't understand. Then the second plane hit. Then the towers fell. The silence in that classroom wasn't normal. It wasn't quiet. It was wrong. Like something had been taken from the world and we all felt the hole it left behind. I saw my mom standing in the hallway when I was pulled out of class. Her face was blank, eyes red. She didn't speak on the way home. She didn't speak for days. And my dad, he never came home. Grief is strange. It doesn't come in waves. It comes in echoes. In the years after, I'd hear his voice. Not in dreams. In places. On the train. In the hallway. Once, I heard him call my name while I stood in line at the grocery store. I dropped everything and turned around. No one was there. I told myself it was my brain trying to remember him. But it wasn't memory. It was real. Felt real. Too real. On the anniversary every year, my phone would ring at 8:46 a.m., the time the North Tower was hit. Always from an unknown number. Always silent. One year, I picked up and whispered, "Dad." There was breathing. Just breathing. Then the call dropped. I never told Mom. She barely held it together on normal days. On September 11th, she turned into a ghost herself. Drifting through the house, TV off, windows closed, all the clocks unplugged. When I turned 23, I moved back to the city for work. My office overlooked the New World Trade Center. The first week there, I avoided looking out the window, but curiosity always wins. The tower stood tall, gleaming, proud, but the shadows it cast, they didn't feel right. They felt heavy. One night, late at the office, I stayed behind to finish a project. Everyone else was gone. Phones silent, lights off except mine. At 8:46 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it, heart pounding. I answered, "Dad." I whispered again. Then a whisper, "I'm still here." I dropped the phone. That night I dreamed of fire. I was in a stairwell. Everything was dark. Smoke coiled around me, thick and alive. The walls wept black streaks. Somewhere above me, I heard footsteps. Slow, tired, deliberate. "Dad," I called out. The footsteps stopped. Then came the knock. 3 times from the other side of the stairwell door. I reached for the handle. It was ice cold. I opened it. There was no stairwell, just sky. Endless gray sky, filled with ash. Papers floated by, charred at the edges. And in the center of it all, suspended in the air, was my father. Not whole, not breathing, frozen in the moment he died. Suit torn, tie askew, eyes wide and blank. And he whispered, "Why didn't you call back?" I woke up gasping, my pillow soaked, fingernails bleeding from digging into my palms. I tried to move on. Really, I did. Therapy, journaling, meditation. Nothing worked. The past isn't just a memory. It's a place. And sometimes it reaches out. A few weeks later, I went down to the 9/11 memorial. I hadn't been in years. I stood by the North Pool, hand on the engraved letters. My father's name was cold beneath my fingers. The wind picked up, whispering down through the square void like it carried the voices of the missing. And then I heard it, a voicemail, playing faintly, like it was coming from below the water. "Brush your hair, champ. You look like a porcupine. Love you." Over and over. I dropped to my knees. "Dad," I begged, "please come back." Nothing but the wind. That night, my phone rang again. 8:46 p.m. This time, I didn't answer. But the voicemail it left still makes my blood run cold. It wasn't the old one. It was new. "Son, the stairs never end. I don't answer anymore. I don't go near the tower." I moved out of the city, back home with Mom. She's older now, quieter, but sometimes I catch her staring at the hallway, like she sees something there I can't. Last week, she handed me a box, old family things. She said she'd finally gone through Dad's belongings. Inside were some photos, his old watch, a tie, and his phone, the one he had with him that day. Charred, melted, but the voicemail light was blinking. I didn't press play. I buried it in the backyard that night. Grief is strange. It doesn't go away. It lingers. It waits. And sometimes, if you listen closely enough, it calls you back. Thank you for listening my story. I really wanted to share it with someone, and I feel much better now. I should have died that day. It's the first thought I wake up with every morning. My name is Grace, and I worked on the 94th floor of the North Tower, receptionist for a financial firm with too much money and too little heart. The job wasn't glamorous, but the view was. I get in at 8:30 every morning, like clockwork. Except that morning, September 11th. That morning, the train was late. It wasn't even a big delay, just a stalled car at Fulton Street, a few loudspeaker apologies, and a 5-minute wait that became 10. I remember looking at my watch, tapping my foot, cursing under my breath. I was supposed to be in the lobby by 8:35. I exited the subway at 8:43. 3 minutes later, the sky fell. I remember the sound more than anything. A low, guttural roar, like the world groaning under its own weight. I turned just in time to see fire tear through my building. Glass rained down like angry stars. People screamed. I screamed. I didn't move at first. Couldn't. I was frozen in some broken part of time, watching the place I should have been turned into an open wound in the sky. And then I ran. I watched the towers burn from a stranger's apartment a few blocks away. We crammed into their living room, 10, maybe 15 of us. Strangers pulled off the street. All of us dusty, shaking, crying. One man kept whispering a name over and over. I don't think it was anyone in the room. I called my mom. The first thing she said was, "I thought you were gone." I was supposed to be. I don't remember how I got home. The day after, I watched the footage on repeat, hoping what, exactly? That I'd see myself in a window? That I'd spot my empty desk? That I could prove I was meant to be there? I didn't lose a limb. I didn't lose blood. I lost something worse. They called me lucky. A miracle. "Can you believe it?" they'd say. "You missed it by 3 minutes." But I didn't feel lucky. They found Caroline's engagement ring in the rubble. She sat next to me every morning. Always brought 2 coffees. One for her, one for me. She died clutching a phone, they said, trying to reach her fiancé. Mark, gone. So was Angela, Raj, George, my whole floor, gone in minutes. And I was just late. I started hearing them in my apartment. First, I thought it was the radio. Murmurs, static, the low hum of voices behind walls. Then came the messages. Emails from long-deleted accounts. Blank voicemails. Once, I came home to find my answering machine blinking. When I played it back, it was Caroline's voice. "Coffee's getting cold. You in the elevator." I dropped the machine. It shattered. I told myself I imagined it. Trauma does things to people, right? PTSD, stress. But when I closed my eyes, I could hear them calling. Not angry, just calling. Like they didn't know I'd survived. A year passed. I moved apartments, changed jobs, cut my hair. People stopped asking. The world moved on, but they didn't. One night, I woke up at 3:02 a.m., the exact time the South Tower fell. My room was cold. I swear the walls were whispering. And then I saw it, a scorch mark on my bedroom window, in the shape of a hand. It was on the inside. I blinked, and it was gone. I started seeing them on the subway. Caroline, standing between the cars, her white blouse singed at the sleeves. Mark, reading a paper, face grayed by dust. I would look again and they'd be gone. Sometimes they just stared. Sometimes they smiled. That was worse. I couldn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? Survivor's guilt, they'd say. A mental break. But I knew better. They weren't angry I survived. They were confused I left them behind. I went to the memorial on the 5th anniversary. I hadn't been before. Too raw, too haunted. But something pulled me there that year, something like a gravity I couldn't ignore. I found Caroline's name, ran my fingers over the cold metal. A ripple of wind moved through the air, colder than the autumn around me. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I should have been with you." And I heard it, a voice soft, right beside my ear. "You were." I spun around. No one. But when I looked back down, there was a coffee cup, still steaming, placed gently beside her name. My name was written on it in black marker. My legs gave out. I wept there until dusk. Now every September I wait, not in fear but in anticipation. The night before the anniversary, I don't sleep. I sit by the window, watch the lights go out across the city, and I listen. Sometimes I hear knocking. Faint, rhythmic, like someone stuck behind a door they can't open. Sometimes I hear breathing. One year I heard an elevator bell ding. There is a part of me, small, hidden, shameful, that wonders if I didn't survive. If that 3-minute delay wasn't mercy, but a curse. If I'm the ghost, wandering through a life that doesn't belong to me anymore. What if that version of me, on time, coffee in hand, is still there, frozen at her desk, waiting for the meeting to start? What if I'm the one that didn't make it? They say survivors carry scars the world can't see. Mine aren't just scars. They're handprints in the dust. Names carved into silence. A coffee cup on a cold memorial. And a voice, always just behind me, whispering, "You should have been here." Good evening, my name is Andrick, and I moved to New York in 2007 to fulfill my dreams of becoming an entrepreneur. I was there when the attack happened. It's been years, but I hear it like it was yesterday. The sharp hiss of something immense cracking above the clouds, the stunned gasp of thousands of strangers, and the silence that followed. That unnatural, unbearable silence. I was on the corner of Church and D.C., a coffee in one hand and a paperback in the other. Just another morning. Then the sky split open. It didn't make sense at first. The roar overhead was out of place, the kind of sound you feel in your bones before your brain catches up. I looked up, confused like everyone else. A plane? But planes don't fly that low. Not here. It hit the North Tower like a knife through flesh. Fast, brutal, final. 1 second, the building was there, stoic and eternal. The next, a gaping wound poured flame and smoke into the morning sky. The fireball swallowed the upper floors. I remember someone screaming behind me, but it felt distant, like I was underwater. Papers fell like snow. Dozens of white sheets fluttered down. Office memos, emails, printouts. Little pieces of lives disintegrating midair. I caught one without thinking. It was a meeting agenda for 8:45 a.m. The time struck me. That meeting would have just started. People stared. No one moved. Then we heard the screams. From the windows above, high up in the tower, shapes were moving. Small black silhouettes. Some waved fabric shirts, jackets, anything, pleading with the sky. And then, some of them fell. Not jumped, fell. Like the building was pushing them out. That's when the horror took root. Not in the explosion, not in the fire, but in that slow, awful realization that they were choosing to fall. Choosing. I remember a man clutching the hand of a woman as they dropped together, like dancers in a cruel ballet. The silence around us shattered. People sobbed. Some ran. I couldn't move. And then, 20 minutes later, the second plane came. I watched it happen. I saw its wings tilt slightly, correcting its course like a predator adjusting mid-strike. The South Tower didn't stand a chance. The explosion was angrier this time. Redder, hotter, as if the sky itself was bleeding. The concussion hit us a second later. I dropped my coffee. It shattered against the sidewalk just like everything else. We ran. Everyone did. I don't remember the direction, only the heat and the dust. Couldn't breathe. My lungs screamed. My ears rang. I thought it was over, but that was only the beginning. Because the towers, they came down. The South Tower collapsed first. It groaned. That's the only word for it. It made this deep, guttural groan, like it knew. A cloud of smoke burst outward and swallowed the street. I ran into a deli and dove under the counter with strangers. Someone grabbed my hand and squeezed. I never saw their face. When we emerged, everything was white. Not snow, not fog, dust. Part of me knew it was people. Burned paper, pulverized concrete, bone, skin, memory, all mixed together. I opened my mouth and tasted it. I still taste it in my dreams. The North Tower fell half an hour later. I saw that one go. It looked like it was folding into itself, like it had given up. No explosions this time, just the slow, heartbreaking implosion of something once so proud. A man beside me screamed his brother's name and collapsed to his knees. And then, the horror deepened. In the days that followed, the city became something else. A tomb. Lower Manhattan smelled like burnt metal and death. Missing posters papered every flat surface, walls, fences, street lamps. Smiling faces asking to be found. I walked among the flyers and felt like they were watching me. I started hearing things. At night, in my apartment, I'd lie in bed and listen to the silence outside. But it wasn't silent. Not really. There were whispers, soft, echoing voices that didn't belong. Sometimes I'd hear the sound of footsteps above my ceiling, even though I lived on the top floor. Once, at 3:29 a.m., I woke up to the smell of smoke. I rushed to the window, heart pounding, but there was no fire, just that same acrid scent, thick and ghostly, like the air still remembered. And then the shadows began to change. I swear, I saw someone standing in my hallway, a man, burned and bleeding, missing part of his jaw. He didn't speak. He just looked at me, tilted his head, and vanished when I blinked. I thought I was going insane. Maybe I was. I went to therapy. The doctor called it survivor's guilt-induced hallucinations. He said it was my mind processing trauma. Maybe he was right. Maybe that's all it was. But some nights I'd pass ground zero and feel a pull, like something there knew me, like it remembered I had survived. One night in 2003, I had a dream, or maybe it wasn't. I was walking through the ruins again, but everything was quiet. No sirens, no people, just rows of desks, still intact, stretching endlessly into the dark. Phones rang from nowhere. On one desk sat the agenda I had caught that morning. 8:45 a.m. circled in red. A voice whispered in my ear, "You weren't supposed to leave." I woke up screaming. I moved away eventually, left New York, left the memories. But the shadows followed. I see the faces sometimes, in crowds, in reflections, in dreams. They don't blame me. That's what makes it worse. They just watch, silent, patient, endless. I'm older now, but every September, the air feels heavier. The sun feels wrong. I light a candle. I say nothing. What is there to say? I still dream of falling glass. And somewhere deep down, I think the city does too.